Story 1. Story: AlTAH for wanting my mom's house to go to me instead of my stepmom when my dad passes. My 21M mom passed away when I was 13, 4 months before I turned 14. The house we lived in was owned by Mom, and it was originally owned by my grandparents. When my mom became pregnant with me, they decided to give it to her. My dad started dating my stepmom a little after I turned 15, and they got married when I was 17. I'm not close to my step-siblings or my stepmom at all, but we have an okay relationship. I still live pretty close by 30 mins away, and I often go over to visit my dad when I can. Last time I was over, my dad got on the topic about retirement and a lot of other stuff, which is the reason I'm writing this. He told me that he was thinking about what would happen if he would pass and was discussing inheritance with me. My dad told me that when he passes, he wants to leave the house to my stepmom and that me and my step-siblings would inherit his other assets evenly. When I heard that, I actually got upset. I told my dad that the house belonged to my mom and it doesn't make sense for my stepmom to inherit her house. My dad told me that he doesn't want my stepmom to become homeless when he passes and wants to ensure she's okay. I told my dad that if I were to inherit the house, I wouldn't automatically kick my stepmom out. I would continue letting her live there. It just doesn't make sense for her to get it over me. My stepmom told me that it would be unfair if I inherit a house while her kids didn't. She said this would be beneficial for everyone to make sure we all get equal treatment. I told her that her kids were grown when my dad married her and they never lived in my mom's house, so it couldn't be unfair to them. My dad tried to calm me down and told me that I would receive better things and I should just try and look past it. This kind of pissed me off, and I told my dad that I didn't want his car or his money. I told him that if he doesn't want me to have the house, he doesn't have to give me anything because I didn't want it, and after that I cut my visit short. When I left, he called me and told me that he was hurt I left and heard about what I said and how I acted. He asked me if I meant it, and I told him that we both know that my mom would not want her house to go to his wife. I told him that I didn't want his money, and if I wasn't getting the house, he can leave everything to his wife and her family if that's what he wants. He told me that he's just trying to make sure that his wife is protected when he passes, and I told him that there are multiple ways to do that without leaving her my mom's house. My stepmom called me selfish for getting mad at my dad trying to protect her. Everyone on my mom's side of the family are pissed, and I feel like they have a right to be. My dad is upset about this, and I haven't been over since. He's been trying to get me to come over again, but I just don't feel like it. My stepmom has been sending me messages that I feel are basically meant to guilt trip me. I honestly feel hurt, and knowing my mom's side of the family are also pissed, I feel like I'm justified in wanting my mom's house. Story 2. AlTAH for telling my husband that I will divorce him tomorrow because he doesn't clean anymore. Advice needed. I'm at my wit's end. Everything changed after marriage, and I couldn't tell you why. Our biggest problem is cleaning. My husband used to clean up after himself, but after marriage he just completely stopped with no warning. We were dating for 3 years, engaged for 1, and now freshly married. We're 28 and 29. After we got married, my husband stopped cleaning. He wouldn't pick up after himself, wouldn't do his agreed-upon chores, and suddenly became a slob. It was like he's been intentionally dirtying things up. I stopped doing all of my housework out of protest a month into our marriage, and I now live in complete and utter filth. I'm rarely home due to the mess. I part-time live with my sister at this point, and he doesn't even care. I come home only to sleep at night, and sometimes I don't even come home at all. It's like we aren't even married anymore, and it's draining my mental health to the point where I've had multiple breakdowns this month. I'm completely over it. I wanted to get married, but this is not the man I married. I would much rather be home where I belong, but I'm not a maid. The mess is as follows: wet food in the sink from him throwing his plate finished or not in there, bugs, garbage littered everywhere, puddles of mystery substances. The trash is never taken out. All of his laundry is dirty, clothes unfolded, crumbs galore, takeout everywhere since he won't cook. Dishes piled to the skies. I can guarantee you there's more, but I can't describe it right. It's like he's a toddler. It's exactly like mommy isn't cleaning up, so he's tornadoing through our house and not caring. Before, he would scrape his plate, rinse it, then leave it. He would take the trash outside and take the cans to the curb. He'd sweep, vacuum, occasionally do laundry, and he would never eat in the bed. Now he does it all. A few hours ago, I told him that if he doesn't clean up tonight, then I'm divorcing him tomorrow. I said if I don't see some progress on the house, then we're over. He told me that I'm being an asshole for no reason, and that cleaning is no longer his job. I nearly popped AF King blood vessel. We did not decide on that. He's telling me that I'm throwing everything away over pride and that all new marriages go through this transition. Bull F King Esset. He told his mom, and she called me not too long ago and told me that I need to calm down and reconcile. I really love my Mill and she's one of the most level-headed people I know. Hence the reason I'm writing this post. She's making me wonder if divorce is too far because it's only mess. But it's mess. She told me that we can reach a compromise, need to take a breather and talk about it all, but I truthfully do not want to. She reminded me of our good times and that life won't always be the way it is now, but I'm feeling incredibly skeptical. I cannot stand filth and I can't live like this even if it's for him. Ada, edit after writing a long comment, I'm done. I know I just posted, but I truly am done. My Mill made me second guess myself, but all I needed was to think about it all and hear an outside opinion, even if it's just one. He fooled me for 4 years and marriage is not trapping me. He used to clean up after himself and be the most wonderful partner. It's a real shame that he showed his true colors after we paid so much on our wedding. I'm not a maid and he's not a toddler. Even toddlers are more responsible and respectful than him. First comment. Sounds like my dad. He suddenly decided he wanted my mom to be more traditional but still work. She's the breadwinner. They're getting divorced now. Edit, this got a lot more attention than I was anticipating. Mao. Just to clarify, my dad is a wonderful dad. My mom actually finds it irritating how good of a dad he is. It's the husband part that's not so great. But he always has our back. When he says he will go to jail for us, he really means it. This is something that came up in the last few years. My mom is awesome in her own ways, and I never doubt that they'll be there when I need them. But both of my parents get on my last damn nerve. I love them, but they're both immature as FCK Mao. Seriously, I would be sending them my therapy bills if it wasn't covered by my insurance. Story 3. Ada for telling my Mill she was out of line when she told my 6-year-old daughter where babies come from. Advice needed. Hi, I'm currently 6 months pregnant. This was a complete shock. My husband and I are both overjoyed. We already have a 6-year-old daughter who is a cheerful and very curious little girl. Ever since she found out she's going to have a little brother or sister, she's been asking a lot of questions about babies and where they come from. Now, I was raised in a strict Mormon family where sex was never discussed. When I was a girl, I remember my parents saying something about mommies and daddies praying and God putting the baby in the mommy's tummy. I am no longer Mormon or particularly religious at all, but I did convert to Judaism when I got engaged to my husband. For him, it's more of a cultural thing. Even though I'm not religious Mormon anymore, sometimes my upbringing comes out in strange ways. When my daughter first asked how the baby got in my tummy, I panicked and repeated what my parents told me as a child, praying God putting the baby there. A few weeks ago, my husband and I went on a trip for our anniversary, and my in-laws watched our daughter. My mother-in-law is incredibly progressive, the kind of woman who spent most of her life protesting and career-oriented. She's pretty much the opposite of my mom and a lot of the other women I grew up around, and I've always been a bit in awe of her. But you can imagine my shock when I picked my daughter up from my in-laws' home, and the whole drive home she was giggling and saying she knows how the baby got in my tummy. My mother-in-law not only described the mechanics of how the baby got their penis and vagina, ejaculation, sperm fertilizing the egg, but also told my daughter that sex is also something your mommy and daddy do to make each other feel good. Now my daughter won't stop talking about sex. She constantly asks me questions, i.e., are you having sex with daddy later? How many times a day do you have sex? That I never quite know how to answer. She repeated everything her grandma told her about sex to a girl in the neighborhood, and I had to apologize profusely to the child's mother. I've since explained to my daughter that certain questions aren't appropriate and that she should tell her friends about sex because it's something for their families to tell them about, and it's gotten a bit better. But I still get random questions every few days and giggling because she knows how the baby got in mommy's tummy. As you can imagine, I'm too happy with my mother-in-law. My husband doesn't seem to think it's a big deal, probably because he was raised by his mother and got the same speech from her at some point, but I'm pissed. I called my mother-in-law and asked why she told my daughter all these things, and she responded that my daughter asked her where babies come from, so she wanted to be honest. I told her it was inappropriate for a 6-year-old, and my mother-in-law said I have a skewed view of what's age-appropriate due to my upbringing, and I needed to be more honest with my daughter unless I want to pass down the Mormon sexual shame to her. I think she may have a point about my skewed views of what's appropriate, since I was obviously very sheltered, kept in the dark about these things for most of my life. But I still think what my Mill told my daughter about sex was a bit much. Admittedly, I probably should have given her a better answer when she asked me, but I do feel my husband and I should have made the decision about when to tell our daughter about sex. I raised my voice at my mother-in-law several times during the conversation. This is very uncharacteristic of me, and my mother-in-law said she wouldn't be spoken to like that by anyone. We haven't talked since it's been 3 weeks. My husband wants us to get lunch so we can reconcile, but I'm worried I'll snap at her again. Am I overreacting, Ada? First comment. Op had a chance to tell herself, but she never bothered. So for me, Mill is definitely NTA. But I do hail from a culture where we don't talk about cookies as vagina. We do have a kiddo word for vagina, but everyone knows it means vagina. It's just easier for kids to say. Same for penis. Can't mistake that kiddo version for anything else. I think Op is Yitia for not handling this herself and then getting angry when someone else did it for her when she put it off. It's very famously one of the first questions bigger siblings ask when a parent gets pregnant. She even did it herself and remembers it. Not Mill fault. Op was not prepared.